There we go. Morning. It is morning. We're running, if you're watching the live stream for some reason, it's running on autopilot today because there's like 10 people out of the congregation out with COVID right now. So we don't have anybody back there. I thought about just putting this on autopilot, recording it earlier and just kidding. Anywho, so we're going to have class. Just to give you a heads up if you're online, I'll try to repeat answers, but that's where we're at. So anywho, hopefully the video is set decently. If not, I'll take the blame for that. So we're going to continue our Life as Christ study, and there's my sources that I use typically. So we're into what we call Lesson 10, what Chuck and I know as Lesson 10. So we jumped to Lesson 10. We dragged ourselves into Lesson 10. More Preaching in Galilee. Look at that amazing title, More Preaching in Galilee. So it's not very creative stuff. So I got two things I'm going to talk about today. Jesus stills the storm, and then he heals a demoniac, heals a demon-possessed man. That'll be the second part. So this appears in three Gospels, Matthew 8, 18 through 27, Mark 4, 35 through 41, Luke 8, 22 through 25. Basically, the stories are very similar. Some of the textual differences. If there's a textual difference that's something we need to talk about, I'll bring it up. If there's not, you get the gist of it. So that's probably, and both stories are the same way. There's a couple places where I thought it really made a difference. Other than that, you can read them all. You can textually compare it. If you're looking for something really good, McGarvey's Fourfold Gospel takes the Gospels, and where it's the same story, he kind of puts them into a big long sentence and says A, B, C, D, tells you which one it came from, so he gives you all the details or all the differences, and it's almost impossible to read because he puts his commentary in line with that too. But it's there, it's a unique tool, so it's available. And that is on, you can find McGarvey's Fourfold Gospel on studylight.org if you're looking for it. It's also old, so it's public domain, so I think you can get a PDF of it. It comes on papyrus, but there you go. All right, so Matthew 8 is where we pick up. Matthew 8, 18 through 19. Now when Jesus saw a crowd around him, he gave orders to go over to the other side. And the scribe came up and said to him, "Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go." So they're on the edge of the Sea of Galilee. And the crowd comes together. Jesus has had a long day. He's had a big day. He's ready to avoid crowds. And in that aspect, I can actually relate myself to Jesus. Crowds are just not my thing anymore. So anyways, he's ready to get on a boat and go to the other side. And apparently the other side, the east side of Galilee, is thinly populated. So who knew? I found out when I was studying. The other side is less populated than the west side. So before they could set sail, and I don't even know if sail is really a good word, but before they get underway, who approaches Jesus? A scribe. How many? One guy. A scribe. It's one scribe. You don't usually see that with the Pharisees and scribes, do they? Don't they usually come in a little pack and back each other up? So, they can attack like dogs, I guess. I don't know what the really key is, but this is one guy. And he's not, I'm going to tell you, he's not coming from the outside. He's coming from the inside. He seems to be what's that? Right. Yeah, he doesn't want to be a part of that pack. He's probably a disciple. As you read through this, I would say he's a disciple who has you're right, he doesn't want to be part of the pack, but he's a believer in some aspect. Yeah. I will say that this story is a lot like the rich young ruler, is kind of, if you want to look at it that way. He's following, he's seeking, but he's not willing to pay the price. I'll leave it at that. I'll put it that way. And maybe if you see it differently, we'll talk about that too.
Well, I just wonder, if he's seen everything that he's done, hearing everything that he's teaching, if he's a scribe,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like Chuck said, for those at home, being a scribe, he's very familiar with the Old Testament. As he hears things from Jesus, and we don't know how much, he's heard a lot, but he starts lining up what he knows what he's looking for, we've been looking for the Son of God. We've been looking for the Messiah. It starts lining up in his own head. He's got more clues than most of us, So yeah, it starts lining up with him, more so than anybody. So what does the scribe want to do? What did he say he wants to do? Follow him wherever he goes. Does he swim well? That's what I would ask that question. Are you a swimmer? But no, that's not really the question he asked. But he says, I'll follow you wherever you go. So he's on the crowded side of the west side, crowded side of the lake, and he's going to go to the east side, the uncrowded side. He says that's what he wants to do. Isn't that kind of what all the disciples? Yeah, that's really all of them. I'll follow you wherever. Hey, Chuck really answered this. What do you think Chuck, the scribe make that decision? He's sure. He knows. He knows is really the key. Verse 20, and Jesus said to him, foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. Man, I tell you what, these are like clues on Jeopardy or something almost, right? Foxes have holes, birds of the air have nests, and the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. So why would Jesus give the scribe an answer like this, rather than what answers we've seen in the past are, follow me and I'll make you fishers of men, right? The original, we've heard that one. We've heard pick up your cross and follow me. He doesn't give either of these answers. He doesn't say, come follow me. He says this. It's going to be tough. You better know what you're buying into. This ain't the fun ride. This isn't the short ride, and it's not the fun ride. Yeah, I'm with you. You got to understand foxes have holes. God takes care of the animals. They've got holes. The birds have nests. Son of Man, he ain't even got a place to lay his head, which ironically later he has some place to lay his head. So keep an eye on that. I just thought about that. See, Mickey? I can see that. I think that's a good point. I think him being in a manger, he had no real home, right? There's no room at the inn, no place to sleep, no place to lay your head. You want to have a baby, have it right there where the animals feed. I'll give you that. That's probably not a bad guess. A lot of stuff's got clues, It might not say it directly, but the clues are there. And I'll give you, if you see it, you're probably right. If you can tie two things together, you're probably right.
But what he said, nowhere to lay his head, normally that's home. And he may be saying, this world is my home.
Yeah. Well, you're right. He's saying that too. This world is not my home. He doesn't have a hometown so much that he calls home. The world is just not his home, and you're right. And with the apostles and stuff, I think that's the big prize. The disciples, apostles, us. The big prize is the world's not our home. It's with him forever. Which is what the guy said. Wherever you go, be prepared. So what does Jesus' answer reveal about his character and the character of those who would have followed him? I found this question. I wouldn't have come up with a question as complex as this. Well, maybe. So what's this say about Jesus' character? And what's it say about the character of the person who would have followed him? Totally committed. It's a commitment. It's a commitment here. And I think we're going to get into it in a little bit. Well, what's it? If I don't, I'll just say it because I don't know if I got it or not. But anyways, if he's looking for an earthly kingdom, which we know the Jews were looking for an earthly kingdom, an earthly reward, this ain't it, buddy. Jesus ain't in it for the riches. He's not the prince of this earth. He's not the prince that'll be glorified that way. And if you follow him, he won't either. So that's part of it. Verse 21, 22, another of the disciples said to him, Lord, let me go and bury my father. Jesus said, follow me and leave the dead to bury their own dead. So what's up with this? I know we've seen this a million times. I don't even need to put the scriptures up there a lot of times because everybody already knows them. Not everybody, but So what's up with this? Guy wants to bury his dead dad, and Jesus says, let the dead bury their dead.
I have heard this preached before, where his father may not have been dead, but he was dying, and so he wanted to go back
Yeah.
and return to however long that took. But it was a matter of, this here was a matter of priority. And Christ seems like he has a hard answer to this. What are your priorities?
Yeah.
The dead, the initial dead here is referred to, is people who are dead to God. Because we don't know what this, he's a disciple, we don't know what he was. And he said, let them leave the dead, bury their own dead. It's the people who are dead to God,
People are dead in God.
that they bury the dead. Because they're not trying to call them.
Right.
They're dead.
Yeah.
And if you go there, you're going to be along with the dead.
And to summarize Chuck's thing up is we don't know if this disciple of his dad is already dead, if he's somebody that's dying, or even if it's far off. And I'll give you some options on that. And like Chuck said, where's your priorities is really what this boils down to. And let the dead, the spiritually dead, those who aren't following God, aren't going to follow Christ, let them bury those who are not, so we don't know that situation. I don't know. That's probably not the best summary of what Chuck said, but I'm going to summarize it that way. It works. Okay. So for the one viewer at home, we'll do it that way. So, yeah, and I've heard this thing preached. I've heard it preached several ways. There's also a parable about the great feast, and the king has a feast, and he sends out invitations to his buddies, basically, and one of them's excuse isn't one of them's excuse, I need to go bury my father? Or is that not? There's one buys property, and one just got married. It might be. Or at least the premise sounds similar to those excuses. It sounds similar to those things. What we think is temporal, here, let me go take care of this, which I'll catch back up with you on the other side. It seems to be more than that. It seems to be more complex. So I might be mistaken. I could have pulled the scripture on that, but I didn't. So.
Reminds me also of Mary and Martha. Martha was getting food. She could not. Jesus, tell Mary to get back here and help me. He says, no, her priorities are right. There's a law.
Yeah, Mary and Martha, you're right. One's got priorities because Jesus is alive and there, dead. I mean, he's alive and there, and her priorities are to serve him rather than with Lazarus, right? That's what we're talking about? Laser?
She was fixing the meal.
Oh, she was fixing the meal?
Send Mary back to help me fix the meal.
Okay.
Mary was talking to Jesus. He says, no, I'm just going to be here a little while.
So, yeah,
She picked the higher priority.
picked a higher priority. Jesus is only going to be there a little while. Spend the time with him. That's it. Kaufman's commentary on this, he sees his disciple as a wait a little while Pharisee who wasn't free to be a disciple till his dad died. So we kind of have what we saw back there with the scribe. The scribe may have been seeking, but he didn't really, we don't know where he picked up, how he followed up on what we saw. This might have been a Pharisee disciple that basically didn't feel free to do it until his dad died, until he didn't have that over his head. If the disciple returned to his old ways, the old viewpoint, the old habits, he'd never more wish to follow Jesus. So this is Kaufman's version of what that is. I can see that. I can see someone coming out of that background. They would be dead to the family. So that might be how it's viewed. McGarvey has even a weirder, I think Kaufman's is the one that you would typically hear. with this. Like you say, it might be a short time, it might be a long time. Let me go take care of life. We don't usually look at it as a short time. McGarvey's looks at it as a short time, and I'll just put that out there, even with an asterisk at the bottom. McGarvey sees him as one of the 12 appointed to follow Jesus, and it's Mark 3:14, who had just received news about his Father. Not that it would be ordinarily be wrong to stop and bury the dead, but that this was a conflict to the command from Jesus to follow him. So McGarvey takes the command that the apostles were appointed. Following of you will follow me. In order to be an apostle, you're going to see the entire ministry. In that aspect, if you take off to go do something, you'll miss part of the ministry. So it's a command. So McGarvey looks at it as you couldn't break a command to go do that. Somebody else could, but those 12 couldn't. The yellow asterisk on there is Philip Pendleton, the co-author, and he writes in there, in the commentary, I do not concur with this. So that's a pretty bold statement to put that in a book as you're writing it. So, Susan?
Well, a little thing you might throw in here is you think about the example Christ set. And one of those is, we know by tradition that his father, Joseph, probably died before he went to the cross.
Sure.
We see no writing that he stopped his ministry to go to his father's funeral. And we also hear him say, yeah, I know you said my mother and brothers are out there, but you are my mothers and brothers. So it's very consistent.
It is consistent with that, yeah.
Example of what is important and things we may not be flawless before, but that we had a focus and a priority in a limited amount of time. We all have a limited amount of time.
We do have a limited amount of time, you're right.
That's kind of the way I see this, is that he very well could be talking from, what's my example? I can go back and read my dad. You don't see me. You think if you did, it would be in the scripture because it's a time.
Yeah, you're right.
Maybe not, but just
I'm with you. I think it would happen. Yeah, Susan's point is Jesus' own dad, Joseph. Joseph passed away somewhere in there, and we don't have the example of him burying him. We don't have the example of him stopping. The example of his own family. He considers the disciples his family. He doesn't consider even his mother and his brother, these are my family. So I like that. Yeah, you're right. The example that Jesus set follows along with this. He's only there for a short time. Like you said, he has a limited time. He only has a 3-year ministry. We all have a limited time. So. Matthew 8:23, follow along. And when he got into the boat, the disciples followed him. So either way, the disciple boarded the boat with Jesus. Whichever way you want to look at it, the disciples get on the boat. It doesn't say all the disciples except for that one guy. It just says the disciples got in the boat. Going to Mark's version, and leaving the crowd, and they took him with them in a boat, just as he was, and other boats were with him. And that's in Mark 4:36. The other accounts don't talk about the other boats. Only this one account. It talks about other boats. So why? What's the big deal with other boats being there? You got the boat Jesus is on, and some other boats. No, they weren't very big, were they? Disciples would be, yeah, the 70, 80, 120. It's a flotilla. Yes. A friend of mine from elementary school, her husband is a fishing guide, and he was on the news this weekend, and he encountered a boat coming from, I'm assuming Haiti, maybe Cuba, and it looks like a sailboat that I would think would be crowded with a dozen people. But they probably had 100 people on this boat. So, yeah. These boats wouldn't be very big. So maybe it's to carry the disciples. It might be other people like that. He's already drawn a crowd. If you can't get there by land, come by sea. These people are coming to hear the word too, and they're trying to get close enough. There are other boats there. This will turn into a miracle. We know he calms the storm. So what's the advantage of having, why did God put the boats there? It shows his power. It also puts eyewitnesses in the account, right? Not just Jesus, not just the few on that boat. Other ones were there. Yes, there was a storm. Yes, I heard him cry out. Yes, it stopped. So you got eyewitnesses. all the stuff in the Bible, especially the stuff with Jesus, it has eyewitnesses. Obviously, we don't have these eyewitnesses live today, but that's a key thing in it. Paul talks about the eyewitnesses. If you don't believe me, these people are still alive in Paul's time. Go find them. They saw the gospel, and they saw his ministry, and they saw him heal. They saw miracles. They saw him die, be buried, and come back to life. So that was Paul's thing, and all we have is a written account of that. But that's typically all you have anyways, right? Whether it was a newspaper or the internet or the TV, you have a version of that. So that's what we have. Picking up in Luke 8:23, and as they sailed, he fell asleep. And the windstorm came down to the lake, and they were filling with water and were in danger. And in Mark 4:37 through 38, the beginning yet, the great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on a cushion. See, right here, he has a place to lay his head. He's asleep on a cushion. So McGarvey says the tossing ship has been accepted in all ages as a type of the church in seasons of peril. So I'll just throw that one in there for free. If you think the church seems like a boat that's in a storm, sometimes it is, and only Jesus can calm that. Do we have another biblical account of someone asleep in a boat in a storm? We know this one. Jonah. Jonah was asleep in a boat during a storm. Jonah 1:4-6, but the Lord hurled a great wind upon the sea, and there was a mighty tempest of the sea, and so that ship threatened to break up. When the mariners were afraid, and each cried out to his God, and they hurled the cargo that was in the ship into the sea to lighten it for them. But Jonah had gone down into the inner part of the ship, had lain down, and was fast asleep. So the captain came and said to him, "What do you mean, you sleeper? Arise, call out to your God. Perhaps the God will give a thought to us, that we may not perish." So the wording is very similar. Storm comes up, and in the story of Jonah, basically, when they tell him, cry out to your God, save us. The thing with Jesus is the same thing. We're in danger. Take care of this. So what's different than the account of Jonah? That's a question I want to ask. Luke 8:24. They wake him saying, Master, Master, we are perishing. Matthew 8:25 said they went and woke him saying, Save us, Lord, we are perishing. And Mark 38, and they woke him and said to him, Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? Like I said, basically the same line. But what's the difference between Jesus asleep in a boat during a storm and Jonah asleep in the storm? Back it up there.
Pray to your God and do something. In the Gospels, they're looking at Christ to do something.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, Jonah, they're saying, pray to your God. We've already talked to ours. Pray to your God. And with Jesus, they say, you take care of this. They've already recognized that he is God. Take care of this. Anything else? Jesus is the salvation in this situation. Jonah is the cause of the storm. So Jonah's why they were there. They end up throwing him overboard. They don't throw Jesus overboard. So anyways, a little bit different. Luke 8:24-25. They woke and rebuked the wind and the raging waves, and they ceased. And there was calm. And he said to them, Where's your faith? Matthew 8:26. And he said to them, Why are you afraid, O you of little faith? And he rose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. And Mark 4:39-40. And he woke and rebuked the wind and said to them, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. He said to them, Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith? So, he said they calmed seas. With Jonah's case, they chucked him in the water. They didn't chuck him in the water. They threw him in the water. I know Chuck hates that word verb, so my name's a verb too, so we'll just take that sometimes. So anyways, what do you see in Jesus' miracle that's different than the naysayers claiming that the storm ended by itself? There are people that will look at this that don't believe, and they will say that the storm just ended. You know, if they want to take the miracle out, it just ended. So what do you see that tells you that Jesus ended the storm?
David believed in faith, but he doesn't.
He has the faith. Yep. They don't just stop, do they? They don't just stop, like you say, like,
It eases back down again, but it doesn't just stop.
they might ease. Storms seem to just start out of nowhere, and we're victims out here. It might be, I know plenty of times mowing the grass. It might, hey, it's starting to get cooler. Oh, the wind's coming. No, get inside. You've got about 60 seconds to hit the inside. But yeah, storms kind of, they taper out. And on the ocean, like that, you can't just turn off the wind, can you? It doesn't just go to zero. How about the waves? Once those start rolling, you got the inertia of waves, they don't just stop. So, that's the stuff that you see here. Because it says he rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. It just stopped. I think even if you're in the eye of a hurricane, although you might not feel the winds, if you're on the water's still going. It ain't stopping. It goes the other direction.
It does get, it gets dead calm,
Yeah.
but it's only because it's being pulled,
Physically pulled to the sides. I've seen pictures of shallow areas where the water all rushes out to meet the storm, then it comes back in at storm surge, and they see the bottom, the ocean for a while. Yeah, 10,000 people or something died there, didn't they, in Okeechobee?
people got out there in the lake where it was dry, and the other side of the hurricane,
Yeah,
and all that.
that's a tragedy. I've read a couple books that call out that storm. A land remembered, and their eyes were upon God. Their eyes were watching God. Both reference that storm and the tragedy that happened with that. All three accounts say Jesus rebuked the storm. What does rebuke mean? I don't know that rebuke means control, but I guess it kind of does, because I'll tell you what, you don't usually rebuke police officers because you don't have the authority. I'll give you that. You don't have the authority to rebuke some people. Yeah. Susan?
It's kind of like you say, rebuke the wind, it's the way you say, peace, be still.
Mm-hmm.
He was in control of the water, like he might be in control of a round child. And you're like,
Yeah. I mean, look.
he was commanding, he was in charge.
He wasn't, yeah, you're right. It's a command. I'll give you that. Clayton says he had the authority, and it comes with that. If you're just screaming at somebody, you can scream at me all day, and I'll just like, whatever, keep going. But yeah, if you get some kind of authority, like you said, a child, a pet, you got authority over it, and you yell at it, and it snaps to and listens, and that's really what you see here.
And the way he said it wasn't like, peace, be still. It's like, peace, be still.
Yeah,
That's kind of the rebuking way to say it. And it stopped.
It's a correction thing. It's a correcting. He yelled it. He did not just, not a whisper. He yelled it out. I'm sure the people in the other boats heard it as well. Part of the miracle isn't just that the storm stopped. They heard him. Express sharp disapproval or criticism, so that's part of it too. This is not acceptable. This has to be fixed. Vocabulary.com says the root comes from the old French rebouchier. Yeah, my French is as good as my Greek and Hebrew. It means to back down or to beat back. A rebuke then is meant to be critical and to chide. And today's term is a verbal smackdown. So that's what you see here. One of the commentaries noted, a guy named Richard Trench, that says, to regard this as a mere oratorical personification would be absurd. Rather, there is here a distinct tracing up of all the discords and all the disharmonies in the outward world to their source in a person, referring them back to him as to their ultimate ground, even as this person can be no other than Satan, the author of all disorders, like in the natural and the physical world. And I like this. To calm a storm, it's not just that the storm stops. The wind has to stop. The seas have to stop. Everything has to clear. And when you look at the author of discord being Satan, as an engineer, you take all the little stuff that has to happen, all that little stuff that had to happen to make the problem, All that little stuff has to be calmed down too. And he takes care of all that. It's not it all at one time. So, and all ties, he ties it back to Satan, however you want to look at it. The world, it's not God that causes the problems. Chuck?
If you look at it as an engineer, he broke the first law.
Yeah, he broke the first law of thermodynamics. Yes, he did. First, it just disappeared. Yeah, even the mass. I mean, an object that's in motion continues to stay in motion. So the second law, Newton's second law, same kind of thing. Or even the opposite, and takes an opposite reaction to stop something. Huh? The opposite and equal. So his voice would be opposite and equal to the storm. Like you say, it ain't a whisper. So it's, yeah, he violated those, or he controls those, however you want to say it. He absorbed all that. Why would Jesus refer to disciples as having little or no faith? If you tie it back to Satan, if I can heal disease, I can forgive sin, I can stop a storm. All he had to do was ask. And even knowing who he was. Is the Son of God going to die in a thunderstorm? No. The story ends right here. It wouldn't have been a good story. It just really wouldn't have. And he drowned. So.
I guess I wonder if his example is to say, I'm asleep because I was at work.
Yeah.
I didn't switch to the end. Don't you have faith? If this was something that was life and death, I've done something. But to help you with your faith,
Yeah. He was asleep. He was at peace with it. He knew it. But to help them with their faith, he did something. Yeah, he has to survive. The eyewitnesses have to survive. Otherwise, the whole story just ends. Pick it up in the next Luke 8:25, Matthew 8:27, Mark 4:41. Basically, they were afraid, they were marveled, saying to one another, "Who then is this that he commands even the winds and water, and they obey him?" That's the reaction of the disciples. They just see another piece of evidence that he is the Son of God. He can even control the storm. These guys, a lot of these are seasoned fishermen. They lived their lives on the sea. Just another storm? Come on, it's just another storm. They've been through storms before, but they see something bigger than that. They were taking on water. Yep.
but they woke them up. Don't you care? They kind of expect it. Then when he does something, they go, wow, you did something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody brings me sick people. I do something. Go ahead.
Can I say that how we are as Christians? We love the Lord and we follow His word, and then we ask Him for something, in faith, and then it happens.
Yeah.
And then you're like, wow,
Wow, it happened.
I can't believe you're shocked almost
Yeah.
that it happened, and the consistency of it. I'm talking from personal experience, all the things that are happening in my life right now. That you ask God for something, but sometimes you have to wait on it. The waiting of it kind of helps us decide that we're going to believe that whatever we ask for, if it's in His name, that we are going to get that thing, or that's going to happen for us.
Mm-hmm.
But every time.
Every time.
Every time.
And it comes. Yeah, you're right. I like that.
Every time that He has come through for me, I'm like, oh my God. Man, you just get so wonderful.
Yeah.
And then something else happens, and you're like, oh my God.
Please help me with this too. Yeah, well, you're right. I like that. We ask for stuff in faith sometimes, but it's almost like, but when it happens, it's like, wow, He listened. He pulled through for us. You're right. I'll give you that. Susan?
It's another example of the depth which you really don't get until you get into the introduction to Acts. This is another example of He is the creator of everything. So He controls what He creates.
He controls what He created.
He brings people back from the dead because He is the creator.
All right.
Anything He created,
Yeah, it's a launch.
He can control. And
In the beginning, he created it all. He created it all, and he controlled it. Yeah, right. It's just another piece of he controls it. Another piece of him being God. He created it. Yeah. Only here will Bible class and worship be interrupted by Bible rocket launches. So, yeah.
Yeah, everybody said it was supposed to go out early this morning.
Yeah, it's early for some people. I've never been one of those late people.
Well, I've had it go out early morning.
Yep.
And it goes over my house. And when you can always tell when it goes off.
You can always tell.
Yeah.
Yep. It rattles windows and it shakes everything.
Yeah.
And if you got a dog, they're
Yeah.
going to tell you.
Crazy.
They go crazy. I think I got 2 minutes, and I'm not even going to try to get into the Jesus heals 2 demoniacs. The funny part about this, I'll point it out. We'll just start it for whatever reason. In Luke 8, they were afraid and they marveled, saying to one another, "Who then is this?" The commands. Oh, that's the same verse. Hold on a second. There we go. When he came to the other side, to the country of the Gadarn, I don't know how to say that. So, Ghirardelli chocolate. The land of Ghirardelli chocolate. Man, what a good place that would be. 2 demon-possessed men met him coming out of the tomb, so fierce that no one could pass that way. Mark's account, chapter 5, they came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Ghirardelli chocolate. And when Jesus had stepped out of the boat, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit. In Luke 8:26, and they sailed in the country of Ghirardelli chocolate, which is opposite Galilee. And when Jesus stepped out of the land, there met him a man from the city who had demons. For a long time he had worn no clothes, and he did not live in a house but among the tombs. Whereas Matthew's account has 2 men who are possessed by demons. The other 2 only have 1. And what it seems to be the solution to this is 2 men came out. One guy had a really, really big problem. We won't address the other one. You could tell the story of a guy had a demon. We fixed that. But the story of the guy who had demons that called themselves Legion, this is the story, you know. This is the story-worthy moment. So that's why it drops down to 1. And it's a big enough story right there. For those who know, our church softball team for a while was known as Legion. I named them, but you know, there's a reason for that. It was some good times. So anyhow, Chuck's probably going to pick up with that next week. I was blessed with the VBS adult class, so I have to come up with 6 hours of classes this week to teach Wednesday through Friday. So, I stepped away from the kids class, so I don't have time for that. I lost my helpers. That's what we're going to do. Or we may break that up or something. So I'll talk to you about that, and very much look forward to that time. So anyways, we will, I guess Chuck will pick up with the demon-possessed man next week. A lot of good stuff in there, including what happens to the demons. The demons recognize Christ. The people don't seem to recognize it. They just, they don't recognize him as somebody who could heal. If you could pull a legion of demons out of a guy, you'd think that the locals would say, go get that guy with cancer, go get that lady who's crazy, bring them here, you know. You'd think that they would say that, but they don't. They just say, you need to move on. So anyways, next week. So thank you all for joining us. Until next week.